I was a princess bride, which is good because all I wanted to be when I was a child was a princess, like in a fairy tale, or a cocktail waitress. I was single for 12 plus more than a decade before I met David, the man who made me a bride. In that time, I did not become a cocktail waitress, although I was a graveyard shift waitress at a diner, and I loved it. In some ways, working at the 401 diner was similar to the Princess Bride in that a disparate group of people worked toward a common goal. I was 25 or 6, freshly dumped via phone call in the parking lot of a strip mall, and bearing an English degree from UCLA. I had never been drunk or done any drugs. I was living with my sister and her husband in Conshohocken, working the day shift at the Bed Bath & Beyond, and 2 days a week I would work 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., 3 a.m. if it were slow, at the 401 diner. I was one of 3 waitresses. There was an older blonde woman, Mary Kay, who had been an LPN and had lost her license for drinking on the job. And Anne-Marie, who was living with her brother while on the methadone clinic protocol. Anne-Marie was probably closer to my age, but had lived a full life before the 401. Malik and Sean were the short order cooks. Sean was probably in his late 20s, black and on parole. Malik was probably my age, black, tall, and extremely handsome. Anthony, as he was introduced to me, did not speak a lot of English, was the busser, and was very kind to me when I tried to speak Spanish, and mostly kept to himself. Mary Kay was a racist, but not fully committed to hatred, just really casual. So casual, it took me a while to notice. I used to carry trays from the kitchen and rest them on my boobs and left arm. In the kitchen, Sean has the radio to Power 99. I have 2 corned beef hash and eggs and a basket with an English muffin that has been through the toaster 3 times. Because that's the way Clark from the fire station liked it. Well done. And Mary Kay passes me and says, are they still playing that jigaboo music in the kitchen? I dropped off my table's food, refilled some coffee, drank some Diet Coke, and then finally rewound the interaction in my mind and actually heard her. My first thought was, what's jigaboo music? I had to ask my sister the next day. I inferred that it was not nice, but I really had no idea. One morning, I'm waiting at the counter to get my 1 free meal, pancakes. They had amazing pancakes. Doing side work. And sitting with Anne-Marie and Sean. Anne-Marie says something about being a heroin addict and being on methadone. In my mind, I said, I've never known a heroin addict before. And added, or anyone on the methadone clinic. Obvious from the way I speak of this now, I guess. But I censored myself, knowing that was not the right response. And I just drank my Diet Coke and cut lemons for the morning shift. Sean was able to commiserate in an appropriate manner, for which I was grateful. They continued their conversation, and Sean started talking about his parole. And again, in my mind, I said, I've never known anybody on parole before. Thank goodness Anne-Marie was able to ask the right questions and give appropriate responses, as I self-censored a second time. Malik brought out my pancakes, I finished the lemons, and Anne-Marie drove me home. This is all to say, clearly we were not people that had a lot in common, but I loved Anne-Marie. She drove me home Fridays and Saturdays so I wouldn't have to walk, and she was one of the nicest people I've ever met, funny and generous and a little strange. On Fridays and Saturdays, we always had the common goal of running the 401 and prepping for the next morning. And we always managed to do it. One night, I had a table with 4 college guys from Drexel that asked me how I said water or water and had lots of special requests, after which they would say, we're big tippers. I brought the check and left it with them. I went to the counter to refill the water pitcher, start the coffee again. I look over and the table at the table, and the boys are gone. I went over. They had left $4 on the table for their $36 check. And they left the check. I ran past Mary Kay and said, "Those guys just stiffed me," and ditched the check on my way to the darkened parking lot to see if I could catch them. Clark of the burnt English muffin heard me and ran out in front of the red sedan and stopped them. They rolled down the window in confusion. What's going on? Malik, Sean, Mary Kay, and Anne-Marie all came outside. Malik says to them, "You stiffed her." Suddenly, they're all turning to each other and saying, "I thought you left a 20. 4 college boys whipping out wallets, and they all gave 20s. I took the money, and we all went back inside. Rarely have I ever felt so supported at work or in life. It was magic. I also got a $48 tip on a $36 check. That was a miracle. And I learned when customers say they're big tippers, they probably aren't. In November, I left the 401 and moved back to California. Went straight back to retail and celibacy. 10 years later, the approximate age of a 5th grader, I left the exciting world of retail and customer service to become the ultimate customer service representative, a middle school teacher. It is just like a fairy tale. The children are like the mice in Cinderella, all helpful and singing, smiling and kind. It's unbelievable. Or it should be, because that's not what it's like. There are moments of amazing where everything falls into place and the slipper fits. And there are moments or months where you cry when they leave for the lunch break and cannot believe you still owe money on that graduate degree. Dating apps are similar. Some people are mean and some are nice. You learn new things, like some guy named Graham texted me DTF, and I had to ask him, what does that mean? Go home and ask your sister. David, who I met on Tinder, is every beautiful part of that motley crew storming the castle. He is endlessly generous to his wife's demands and manipulations, like Wesley. Devoted to his father and single-minded in purpose, like Inigo. You ask him to fix the can opener, and he will not be sleeping until he does. And sometimes the biggest, strongest, and sweetest, just like Fezzik. This is perfect because I am definitely more Buttercup and Valerie than I am Aurora, Snow, or Cindy. I am pragmatic and loud and innocent and jaded and so in love with my husband that I can definitely see us living and fighting together for hundreds of years.